Hey fellas, it's been a little while. Sorry for the lack of uploads, I just needed a bit of a break before I made another video, and I wanted this one to be a bit longer. I'll do my best to upload more, but in the meantime I hope you enjoy. Also, if you like the video, make sure you like it and subscribe, it really helps me out. Thanks. Virtual reality. A media once thought to be science fiction, now readily available to anyone with a willingness to take out a loan or sell one of their organs. VR is something that over literal decades we have developed and fine-tuned. I'm not joking, look that up. And now, we look at our creation and work a 9 to 5 at a convenience store. For the longest time, VR had only been available in these huge arcade games where you could play one specific game and that was about it. The Nintendo Virtual Boy had tried to be the main seller for VR in 1995, but it fell directly off a cliff into a garbage can because the games looked like this. It wasn't around until 2016 when the big boys decided to show up with their brand new fancy technology, the Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive. And I guess the Windows Mixed Reality headset, but no one owned one of those. Now with VR, you've got a whole new playing field to work with, meaning you've got to account for every possible angle in every situation. If you want to reload, you have to reload the gun yourself, not just watch some animation that's the exact same every single time. If you want to kill that guy, you have to get up close and personal as you watch the life fade out of his eyes. And if you don't want to pay rent, you have to kneecap your landlord with a shotgun. When a game becomes fully immersive, it's the developer's job to give us as much freedom as we want in order to create a game that feels more lifelike. For example, this game gives you any weapon you want, from swords to spears to axes, but you don't have to use any of them if you don't want to. You could roleplay as a gorilla smacking people around, which is not only a viable strategy, is also an effective way to destroy one of your controllers. Another element of VR is human error. In most games, because you yourself control the inputs for your character, you'll have pro players wiping down entire lobbies in minutes. The difference being, in VR, it's like if you took away all of someone's motor skills and covered their hands in grease. People will drop things, not know which button to press, accidentally blow their teammate's head off with a rifle, crash into objects in real life, and plenty more. It's the human error that makes the games a lot more fun, giving you the freedom to do basically any playstyle you want depending on the game, while also requiring you to figure out how to handle your new surroundings. No matter how good you think you are in VR, the aspect of actually holding the gun or having to aim is going to make the game not only more difficult, but more authentic. Well, as authentic as VR games can get. Speaking of games, let's talk about them. Or rather, the lack of them. When I say that, I don't mean the lack of VR games in general, I mean the lack of VR games that are good. Take something like Skyrim, which in theory sounds great. Fighting bandits, killing dragons, all sounds awesome until you realize how poorly that translates from PC to VR. All the bugs are there from the PC version, and the combat is about as satisfying as having a nail jammed into your hand. Luckily, this can all be fixed with mods, but that's besides the point. VR should be immersive from the start, and a lot of these games feel like gimmicks that wear out pretty quickly. Take Job Simulator, for example. If this was your first VR game, which for me it was, you would think that this was crazy, watching all the physics items collide and feeling the controllers vibrate as you picked up things. But after a while, you start to realize that these types of games are glorified tech demos, and that playing Minimum Wage Worker Simulator loses its charm after about half an hour. It's not that it's bad, it's just a very basic start to the massive amount of possibilities that are in VR. Look at a game like Blade and Sorcery, an indie VR game that you've already seen being played in the background. The game is extremely melee combat focused and is doing everything right that other VR games do wrong. The weapons actually have weight to them, the swings and stabs feel satisfying, the enemies react to your attacks with real-time physics rather than stand there and play an idle animation, and you have easily controllable magic at your disposal. These combined make for one of the best VR games right now, at least in my opinion. And I'll admit, the game does need some work. The combat can feel a little clunky or clustered, and sometimes the enemies will glitch out if you hit them too hard, but overall it's a solid indie game compared to the likes of a cheap PC port of an 11-year-old game. But for all the cool things VR can do, with it there are plenty of drawbacks that become very apparent very quickly. First off, the price. Obviously, virtual reality is not going to be cheap due to some factors I'm not too sure about, but on release, the HTC Vive was a whopping $800 for the entire setup, which included the headset, 2 controllers, the sensors, the charging cables, and a big middle finger from Valve who just sucked $800 out of your wallet. Now, I understand that people have to get paid for their hard work, but charging almost $1,000 for VR is near insanity. Luckily, I got mine used off of eBay for around $300 like 4 years later, but that's besides the point. Reason number 2, design. Since this type of stuff was a new technology around 6 years ago, I'm gonna give a pass to Valve and to Oculus because the designs they had were decent for how comfy the headsets were. And when I say decent, I'm going to ignore the fact that at first it feels like a brick has been taped to your head, but at least now my neck and shoulders are so large that I have to turn sideways when walking through doorways. But overall, it's manageable. Now, Sony, would you like to explain yourself? What in God's name is this amalgamation of a headset? Whenever I wear this thing, it feels like I'm being strapped in for a lobotomy while the front visor hangs off my face. And who on the design team thought that these would be a good look for the controllers? At least when I hold the Vive controllers, I feel the cool design, though they might look a bit weird, but with Sony, the entire design team was smoking K2 while scribbling on the schematics for how these were gonna look. Okay, sorry, I got a bit upset. Another thing about VR that's important is accessibility. You want to take your Vive to a friend's house. Too bad, you drilled the sensors into the wall and now they're stuck there. Don't trip because you might get strangled to death if you fall into the hundreds of wires the Vive has attached to it. But lo and behold, a solution presents itself. The Oculus Quest, or in this case the Oculus Quest 2. But it's basically a glorified Beat Saber machine due to a lot of these games being, as I said, gimmicks. And if you wanted to play Steam VR games, you would need to buy a link cable, which is $70, and you would need a decent PC in the first place to even think of trying to run some of these games. At this point, it's easier just to buy a used VR headset like I did and play games at an arguably better quality with a bigger catalog. So truly, it seems like we run out of options. You can either play on a big bulky headset with tons of wires or play on a less reliable system with a smaller library. It just doesn't seem like there's any way you can win. So that brings us to the main question of this video. Is VR just a gimmick? Sure, you can make the argument that it's just a fad, but you can make that argument about a lot of things. Despite the fact that VR has a long way to go, I think it's a great medium for an entire new genre of games. While it seems like the catalog can be kind of a dumpster fire at times, there are plenty of amazing games that work perfectly in the setting of VR. Games such as Boneworks, Half-Life Alyx, Blade and Sorcery, Pavlov, and custom order made 3D2 It's a Night Magic. For $40.
This is a VR-compatible harem training simulation.
This game was definitely made by a pedophile.
Flavor-wise, there is training, management, harem, maid, and costumes with optional group, sharing, and NTR.
If you like this game, you're going straight to hell. Despite its flaws and sometimes lack of decent games, virtual reality is, in my opinion, not just a gimmick due to the advancements it's made for video games and technology in general. So if you have the spare cash, go out and get yourself one of these headsets, and enjoy. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe because I'd greatly appreciate it. Alright guys, I'll see you later.